Welcome to S&B Podcast. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, John Sinclair. I'm a corporate strategy specialist with special focus on turnaround and growth. I have designed and delivered some of the most complex transformation programs globally for some of the Fortune 500 companies as well as late-stage startup. And the hope is that we share some of those successes and some setbacks with you, and hopefully you find them useful. So, as I have mentioned in our last podcast, that this several podcasts that we're going to be shooting in the next few weeks is going to be focused around leadership series. And for that reason, I'm super excited. And we have an amazing guest in the studio with us. He's a good friend of mine and an industry professional. He's an amazing leader, amazing business leader. He's one of the most passionate guy I've ever seen doing what he does, leading his world-class sales team. His name is Digant Shah. He's the group president for software and digital services at Bosch. And the man is a wealth of knowledge. I am certain that you will love hearing from him. So without further ado, hi, Digant. Thank you for being here.
Hey, John, thank you for inviting me. For a moment, I thought you were talking about somebody else and not me, but I'm glad to be here.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Thank you. Thank you. So you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, John, as you know, I've been a growth focused business leader now, almost completing 25 years in the global technology services sector. And I've been privileged to help a lot of companies across a broad spectrum of industries in terms of how they stay relevant in today's digital age. And I'm looking forward to our discussion. I'm hoping that some of my experience rubs on, helps your listeners
Hey,
on this
hopefully I
podcast.
learned something.
Yeah, there's always, there's so much for me to learn from you. So,
All right. Thanks, buddy. All right. So you're a Harvard educated man. You're one of the smartest man I know. You're highly marketable. So I've got a twofold question for that. Why did you decide to, out of any of the industry sector you could have chosen, why did you decide to be in the tech services sector? That's number one. And my second piece is I have personally observed your passion. That's something that stands out. You're extremely passionate about leading high performance sales team. How did you get to that?
okay. So let me take those one by one. I believe there are
Sure.
two questions, right?
Sure. Yes.
So first, I started the traditional route. I was studying, this is in early 1990s, I was studying electrical engineering. And I took some comp science courses as a part of my electrical engineering course, and nothing sparked at that moment. Then in 1996, one of my friends introduced me to the whole world of internet and web development and web programming. And that sparked a huge interest. I truly believed, and this is pre-Amazon and pre-Google, I truly believed that at that point of time, internet was a very transformative technology. And I got passionate about it. And then coming straight out of college, I declined a campus offer from a traditional blue chip organization in my field of electrical engineering and decided to co-found a web development startup, basically helping brick and mortar businesses create an online presence over the internet and helping them figure out newer revenue streams, right? Using the power of internet as a technology. And that became a passion and a calling for me. And that's how I got hooked onto the technology sector. Now, coming back to this question around sales, leading high performance sales and sales teams, when I co-founded this startup, I was actually looking at the sales function, the business development from grounds up. And it's a B2B business. You're trying to sell to other enterprises out there, other customers out there. And I was knocking on door to door and I realized, gosh, this is a tough job. And sales is a tough function to be in, especially in the B2B context.
Correct.
And over a period of time, I realized that it's essentially a high performing sales team can actually change the trajectory of your organization. A good sales team could make or break. Yes, you do need a market aligned product. You do need to be in the right industry sector. But once you've got those things, if you don't have a high performing sales function or a sales team, you're not going to grow that strong. So I think that also became very passionate to me. Having incubated, curated sales teams in my startup organization to doing that for multiple organizations, and it became a calling card for me.
Awesome. It's terrific. I did not know that you actually started a startup, so that's good to know.
Yeah, it was coming straight out of college. Yeah, I
Nice.
was I was naive, but it was fun. That taught me a lot.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So one of the observation that I see that there has been a significant shift in the industry in the last 7, 8 years, right? Where the buyers, the tech buyers, are no longer as interested in just cost takeout, cost play, right? They're more looking at revenue growth, transformation type of initiative. And this is definitely making a huge impact to the tech sellers, like especially systems integrators, um, other large service products and services providers. So my question here is this twofold, right? One, how is it impacting you, if any? And the second piece, how do you think this new reality, this new paradigm, how do you think all these SIs and the old school tech sellers, how are they adapting to this new reality?
I think it's a very good and a very relevant question because I've
Okay.
worked with a lot of SIs as well, and I've seen the SIs trying to transition from a cost-based play to a value-based play, right? Now let's try to understand how this shift has happened. So, as we know, in the last 20, 25 years, you can see the whole evolution of what I mentioned at that point of time in 1990s, the early internet age, right? To now today's hyper-connected digital world, where there's rapid disruption happening all across, all over. If you've seen each and every industry sector, companies are getting disrupted. The average lifespan of a company on an S&P index has gone down in the past 2 decades. Why is this happening? This is happening because of the democratization of technology and consumerism. We are seeing so many upstarts which have gone from just pre-revenue or pre-revenue to unicorns to some of this now are trillion-dollar companies on the market. So you're seeing huge pressure on traditional industry categories, and every industry, every company is trying to innovate, right? So 10 years back, what companies tried to do was they focused on operational efficiency because everybody knew that to grow your market share, you'll do the traditional things and you'll grow inch by inch in your market share. But now you have technology that has potential to be differentiated in a way in which it can change the growth trajectory or even cause you an existential crisis. And so that's the reason why a lot of the focus has gone from outsourcing or outsourcing for cost arbitrage or labor arbitrage to outsourcing for value. A lot of these companies that help in terms of figuring out how can you partner with them in leveraging or channelizing a new technology in helping them grow the top line revenue. It's not about the bottom line anymore. It's about the top line. It's an exciting time actually as a seller. So if you ask about ecosystem of sellers, it's an exciting time because anytime you can create value, you can derive a premium from it, and you're also making a meaningful impact to the business top line. So I think it's exciting times. It's that's more fun to do than the traditional cost arbitrage, labor arbitrage game. And I think everybody's trying to pivot towards it, including SIs, and everybody realizes that the economies of scale, operational efficiency, while there is a play, those deals are getting less and less in the market. And there are more deals around transformation, around innovation fueled by transformative technology. And I think a lot of people need help over that.
Absolutely, and I think you're absolutely right. I think I also noticed the shift from just pushing commodities bodies into a value based selling, right? So absolutely, this is where the industry is going, and more of these emerging technologies are coming to maturity. 5G, artificial intelligence, you name it, right? Quantum compute. You're definitely going to see that it's going to force the traditional players to adapt, right? All right, so the next question is, I'm a firm believer in building relationships, right? And I'm therefore, and the way you build relationship with your customer or your internal stakeholders are also your internal customer, right? Is demonstrating respect. And the one way that I have learned years ago that there is absolutely no substitute for pre-work. You want to prepare before you meet your customer. You look at their 10K 10Q. You want to do industry research, and I do the exact same thing when I meet with my internal stakeholders. I feel like I bring value to that conversation because I always believe like you just show up in a meeting and does it work? Maybe some time, but majority of the time I've seen it doesn't work well. So I personally am not a big fan when somebody forces me and say, "Hey, can you jump on a call?" Or, "Hey, first thing in the morning, can you show up with a 10-page, a PowerPoint deck?" And the same thing happens with my sales team, right? So oftentimes, they would be under pressure by someone else, which is I find it to be a problematic, right? Because you're kind of taking away their ability to prepare accordingly, right? So I'm sure you face that. You have similar issues in your sales team. So how do you handle something like this?
Yeah, so it's a very prevalent thing, right? It's not a rare occurrence, it's a common day occurrence. And I don't think the organization, anybody who puts you in a position of meeting a customer just 10 minutes, with a 10-minute brief,
Correct.
you're not setting up yourself up for success, right? Why do you do all the things you mentioned about the research, looking at the 10K? Why do you do all this? You do all this so that you can create value for your customers. You can understand what their priorities are, right? And you can offer them an informed point of view. Now, what happens is if somebody asks you to join a call and you just have a 10 minutes advance notice of joining a call, all those things disappear. You don't know, you may not be well informed about your customer's priorities. The only thing in that case, the only thing that I can do is I can have a conversation. And the other thing I can do is I can ask the right questions. But I can't offer any informed opinion. I can't, tell a story. So that's about it. I make sure I set the right expectations that yes, I can join the call if you need, but we haven't been properly briefed. I can have a conversation and I can ask the right questions, and then we'll take it from there. Ideal situation, the typical brief that I would like, right, before meeting any customer is obviously ideal situation. I tell all my sales folks and sales colleagues is always start with the customers. While the customer may have a stated need, always start with the customer's stated as well as unstated needs. Why does this matter to the customer? It's very important for us to know that intelligence is absolutely required. It's paradigm. It's required. Second, where is the opportunity for us to add value to the customer based on that information? And then map it backwards to your portfolio of product or service in your wheelhouse. You know how that value can be created for a customer, how that value can be compelling and differentiated, right? And this requires time, like you said, it requires time, not just with customers, but also in terms of research, understanding the priorities of the customer, understanding the environment in which the customer is operating. It's also important to understand your competition, the ecosystem of the competition that's selling into the customer. What are they selling? What are they doing? What strategies are they formulating to create value for the customer? Otherwise, you're just answering the mail. It's very difficult to win in the long run. It's very transactional. So I think it's very important. The question you asked, it's very important that while you may not avoid getting into a call at the last minute with customer, but you always need to focus in terms of how do you build a long-term relationship with that customer.
No, this is an excellent analysis. To be honest with you, that doing this as long as I've been doing it for the last 23 plus years, this is the challenge I've had many occasions. And sometimes it's hard to convince the requesters, hey, you're depriving the opportunity to add value to this call. But nonetheless, sometimes you have to be a good corporate citizen and you jump in. And like you said, I like the idea of asking some good questions, and hopefully that will provide you the opportunity to get some insight, and then you'll come back with some informed opinion, right? So thank you for that. So next topic, let's talk about emerging technologies, right? One of the things that jumps out top of mind and something I talked about passionately in my previous podcast, it's 5G. I feel like 5G is the emergence of 5G. It's not evolutionary, but it's revolutionary because just a sheer opportunity uh, for transformation it presents, right? And especially those organization or industries that are leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms, and especially companies that are leveraging IoT or industrial IoT. So I think there's three industries that jumps out right away, right? One would be industrial manufacturing. I think about smart cities. I think about medical care, or healthcare and life science, right? So I think there's tremendous opportunity. These organizations, this industry is going to grow leaps and bounds, leveraging all these collective technologies. So what's your observation on that?
So yeah, 5G is exciting, but I mean there are so many exciting technologies on the horizon. Think of metaverse, quantum computing, right? So there are so many exciting technologies on the horizon. But technology in itself is just a commodity. Eventually, the differentiation is if you're able to leverage the power of the technology to, make an impact for your business, make an impact for your consumers, make an impact for the communities in which you operate, right? So, John, I work globally. I operate in, my role in my current role and typically in my past roles. I've seen the market globally because we compete in multiple markets. I've had global charters before. So let me talk a little bit about trends. So I'll deviate a little bit away from technology, but let me talk a little bit about the trends that I'm observing
Sure.
in globally,
I
whether
love that.
it's North America market, whether it's European market, whether it's EMEA, whether it's Middle East, or whether it's APAC market. Firstly, every company on this planet is increasingly becoming a tech company or a technology company. And it is software which is fueling this. Software is the center of this transformation of a traditional company becoming a tech company. And I think everybody's realized that. And it's not just about hiring software engineers, but people are also now hiring cross-industry executives who come with that software and digital background, right? So the boundaries are getting blurred between industries, and software is at the center of this boundaries getting blurred. Second, I think it's all about personalization, and data is the new oil. Everybody, that's the phrase which is very popular. Data is the new oil, and frictionless experience matters. So people were talking about creating 360-degree views of the customer using data, but I think people are now talking about creating 720-degree views of the customer. It's about how do you make the most out of the data that you have? How do you generate insights from it to create that differentiated experience for your customers and a seamless experience for your customers? Third important thing, again, relevant to, say, industrial manufacturing, the industry you're talking about, right? You're talking about autonomous. Well, we are all familiar with self-driving cars. Machines are increasingly becoming more autonomous, whether it is even robotic surgery in healthcare, or if you talk about machine-to-machine communication in industrial manufacturing, or it's supply chain or shop floor automation, right? So all this is possible because all the advances in cognitive computing in ML ops coming into play. So we are seeing this trend globally across the board. Then look at the whole IoT play of connected products. You're talking about devices that are getting smarter, they're getting connected. You have edge computing coming into play. You have IoT cloud coming into play. So this generates the possibilities of people from like a lot of businesses. This generates the potential not just to sell a product, but to generate new revenue streams around services wrapped around the product or selling insights from the data that the product generates because it is now smart and connected. And the last is the whole energy and sustainability space that's exploding. All of us, the governments are under pressure because of conscious citizens, or we have eco-friendly consumers that are driving changes in the behavior of companies. All companies are pledging to net zero, reducing carbon emissions by in next 25 to 30 years. And you need revolutionary technology to help on this journey. So I would say these are the main drivers. There'll be 5G, there'll be even more exciting technology, but these are the current drivers I'm seeing across the globe, and where technology is going to be very important across multiple industry sectors.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. That's such a nice and broad overview of what's happening in the industry, especially around emerging technologies. Thank you, Digant. All right. So, business case. So, both you and I are no stranger to that, right? I mean, we either have to make business case to get secure budget for internally, or we have to go make compelling business case to position a new technology, right? So, the latest could be cloud, could be analytics, could be whatever, a transformation program. So the newness of some of these technologies, a lot of customers, and which I've seen in the last couple of years, there's some, hesitancy, right? Because nobody wants to be the early adapter. Everybody recognizes that, there's a huge investment commitment for any time you're trying to invest something new. I remember back in the days when I was working as a consultant in IBM, and I would go meet up with a lot of customers, especially C-suite, discussing. At that time, it was more prevalent was IT transformation and maybe some M&A activities. And every single time we would go and talk about something. I'm talking about like a decade ago, maybe a little a longer, virtualization, something as simple as that. And I remember people, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't want to be the first company doing this. Who else is doing this in the industry? Is Goldman doing this? Is Deutsche Bank doing this, right? So that would be this next question that comes up. So naturally, this is no different what we are dealing with today. So how do you make a compelling business case and help customer, give them the assurance that this may be the right time to invest. Maybe this is the right time to be the early adapter to some of these latest and greatest technologies that we've been discussing.
Yeah, it's a good question, and you can't always create a business case all the time, right? I think the organizations have to be ready, and you need to understand and respect the organization's culture. I think many times, many organizations view adopting a technology early in its life cycle as risky, plain and simple, for multiple things. One is that they have to figure everything out on themselves. You may not get the necessary talent or skill. And there's also a financial cost to early adoption. So I think those are the standard typical risks, unless technology is very organic to you. You're not you're in an industry category where technology is not very organic to you. Then those organizations struggle. It's very difficult to create a business case for them. Simple thing, very simple thing. Let's say cloud. Pandemic accelerated the adoption to cloud, but you still have so many regulated industries that struggle. Um, that question: Do I need to be on cloud? Manufacturing companies. I'm very asset heavy. Do I need to be on cloud? Healthcare companies. I have a regulated environment. Do I need to be on cloud? So you still see those questions, and some of them are driven by regulatory norms and considerations where companies are very risk averse. They want to be in compliance. They want to make sure that they don't get fined for breaking some of those regulations. But anytime you're aspiring to be a market leader, so this is what I always tell when I talk to the business and we're talking about new technology. One of the things that comes up is, are you aspiring to be a market leader? And in today's world, if you're aspiring to be a market leader, you need to go beyond your traditional industry categories. You need to actually define or redefine the category in which you're operating. And one of the ways you can do that is through differentiated technology. And if you really aspire to do that, then you need to start experimenting. You need to take those starting steps. You need to explore. You need to experiment with some of those technologies that will help you challenge the status quo, help you reimagine and create new business models around the technology, around the data, the power of data. So those are the conversations. If the customer is happy, doesn't want to challenge the status quo, there's no point in pushing the customer to create a business case. It's not going to hold up. The culture ain't going to be there to take them through the entire journey. So I think it's all right to pick your battles, work with the right companies. Then you're setting yourself up for success as well.
Thank you. Uh, all right. So, which brings me to our next question. Today's topic, we'd be discussing business and sales, right? Um, so it's all about relationship. The success and failure always, almost always depends on the strength of your relationship with your customer, or including internal stakeholders, right? One of the challenges that I've observed since the pandemic that a lot of our customers and colleagues are working remote, and that definitely creates a set of problems. I'm not sure if it's for everybody, but I personally have experience. I've had many colleagues, industry peers, had shared similar concerns. Because especially when you're in sales, I always felt there is no substitute for building that relationship, that the shaking of the hands, being able to read the rooms, take your customer out someplace, maybe even a golf outing or even go for a cup of coffee or something. The level of the intimacy that you get to develop in a short period of time, and I feel like doing the same thing, trying to through Zoom or WebEx, it's just not the same. And that has been a challenge. I noticed a lot of my friends in sales would come up to me and say, man, it's really difficult. I feel like we're still closing deals. But it feels very transactional. They're struggling to build those, long-term meaningful relationships. So what has been your observation, and what have you done to overcome some of these the challenges that I've outlined?
Uh, I agree with all your colleagues who have told you it's difficult. Definitely, it's very difficult right now. There's no substitute to in-person meeting. Technology has become immersive of late, yeah, but not to a point where it can really substitute an in-person meeting and help you build those long-term relationship. But there are certain things, there are certain tricks of the trade, or certain things that you can do. And I realized that in the pandemic, and we brainstormed as a group, we discussed as a group, and we picked what best worked for everybody, right? We picked the best practices amongst the group, what worked for each and all. So some of the things, one is that I'm talking about purely when you can't do physical meetings, right? So in existing relationships where you already have relationships, make sure you're turning the video on, right? It's very easy to get disconnected when you're no longer going to the office, you're no longer in the hallway chatting with your customers. You can't read the body language. I think it's very important. Turn the video on. Body language is still very important. So whatever visual cues you can get through the video, uh, be aware. Pick on those visual cues. Pick on the body language. Yes, we like to take our customers out for lunch, for dinner. Uh, One of the best practices, what we adopted, and I learned from one, in fact, I learned from one of my sales guys. He would set up a coffee meeting because he and one of the customers would meet regularly for coffee once every month on a monthly basis. So what he started doing was he used to send a Starbucks gift card or pre-order a coffee for my client, and they would have a virtual coffee
Oh,
online.
wow.
So that was very interesting. I said, yeah, you could still have your coffee, and you could still actually have your coffee, and all you need to do is maybe send a virtual gift card as a token of appreciation and nudging your client into having a coffee with you. Likewise, one of my sales colleagues adopted asking for the favorite food and ordering a DoorDash and sending it to the customer and having virtual lunch together. So you could still have these moments created virtually, having lunch, having coffee. It's a different experience, but you could still orchestrate and you could create those moments with your customer. Celebrate successes. There's no reason if you're not physically meeting as a team, you can still celebrate success as a team together. You could always have virtual celebrations, get all the team, do those celebrations online, do your joint events, whatever planned with customers online. Don't make it transactional. Now, coming to new customers, it's very difficult to build new relationships. So don't make it transactional. Always go for a $0 conversation. Your whole goal is to make sure that you're building a lasting relationship, right? The customer needs to see you as a trusted advisor. The customer needs to know you have that person's back, irrespective of which organization that person goes to in the future, right? Then you've built a holistic, lasting relationship.
I like that. I like that. You have to look out for your customer's best interest. That
Yes,
authenticity is extremely important.
yes.
I like it. All right. So, which brings to our next question, methodology, sales methodology. I hear this a lot. A lot of companies in the industry has this a misconception that one methodology is better than the other, and somehow this is the end all be all. If you get medic over need or consultative selling or platinum, somehow it gives you an edge. I am of those believe that sales methodology, yes, it's an essential tool, right, for accurate forecasting, managing the entire sales process. Great. But I don't believe this is the end all be all. There are a series of dependencies that needs to be satisfied, right? So I'll let you talk to that. So I got a twofold question as always. I think you like that, right? I'm throwing in multiple question and every question has multiple parts. So my first question is, um, do you have a favorite methodology, and if so, why? And secondly, if you would just kind of tell us that what are the other dependency that has to be satisfied for a sales tool or a methodology to be effective?
Okay. So you rightly called out, right? There are multiple sales methodologies and frameworks that exist out there. I view it more as, a means of providing some structure to the sales team and tracking the sales process. There is no substitute for few things, right? Firstly, irrespective of the sales methodology you pick, and irrespective whether you're a high-performing sales team or not, you still need a market-aligned portfolio of either a product or a service. You still need a stellar service delivery organization that can support your product or service once it is sold. So there's no substitute to it, right? So uh, coming back to, yeah, there are multiple, you named a few like Spin, there's Neat, there is Medic. I like Spin because it's very simple. Um, Again, very important, none of this will teach you how do you create a instinct, for your customer. How do you build that sales instinct, that killer instinct that the high performing sales team typically have. So none of this will teach you that. But it brings some semblance of structure in your organization. But for me, the gist is always go back to the basics. Always make sure that you get your basics right in your sales organization. One is very important to understand the context. What problem is the customer trying to solve? Why does this matter to the customer, right? Second, what does success look like from a customer's perspective? What, both quantitatively and qualitatively, right? Numbers and subjective, qualitatively. How will the customer become a hero in the organization? How will the organization become a hero in the marketplace? So, what problems are they trying to solve? Third, very important thing, are you speaking to the right stakeholder? Does that person have the charter and the intent to solve that problem? Right. Secondly, is that person a decision maker? May have a charter, may have the intent, but is that person a decision maker? So it's very important that you should be speaking to the right stakeholder. Lastly, timeline and spending appetite, right? Sales lives quarter over quarter, right? They get questioned every quarter. They're compelled to sell and close deals fast, but you have to respect the customer's timeline. and when is the customer ready uh, for that problem to be solved, and what is the appetite for customer to spend on that problem. I think it's very important. So these are the four basic things. So I always encourage my, as a part of, apart from the sales methodology, I always encourage my sales team to cultivate following habits, right? One is have a conversation rather than trying to deliver a presentation. Second is ask relevant questions. It's yes, everybody values you for your point of view, but instead of offering an opinion, ask the right questions. It's very important. Third, focus on solution or solving the problem rather than selling your services or product. That's incidental. That will happen. Uh, Fourth, empower the buyers. If you have if you know if it's the right buyer, empower the buyers. Build a conviction in the buyers that this is how the problem can be solved and how you can be a value creator or a partner in that journey.
Excellent. Digant, I love it. I love the simplicity. I love the elegant approach, and how well you articulate the entire process. No wonder, I've seen you in action, and no wonder you're successful. You lead a high performance team, and I think today some of the insights that you have shared definitely demonstrate that. So thank you. I mean, I think it has been valuable to me, and I'm sure our viewers and our audience will find this equally as useful. So, having said that, I personally know you. I know you professionally. Is there anything that you would like your friends, your peers, your customers to know about you that is not generally available?
Well, I think John, you know me over I think quite a few years now, and you know that I love to travel, and I'm privileged because I consider myself privileged because I'm in a position to travel because I work with organizations which require you to travel. So I love to travel to just not just meet new people, but also experience new cultures. So that's something great about my job, traveling. Second, I think why are you doing all this? You're doing it for your friends and family, right? So I think family is very important. It's often neglected. A lot of professionals ignore that aspect of work-life balance. Very important to be committed to spending time in your life part, right? The work part will happen on your life part, where family comes, friends come, community matters, right? So I'm very conscious in terms of making sure that no matter what happens, I can strike a work-life balance and give ample time to my family, friends, and community. Right. Third very important thing is that, and I encourage all my colleagues and sales folks with whom I work and in the past, right? It's very important to be in a good space health-wise, whether it's mental health or physical health. If you're not healthy, either mentally or physically, you're not going to do a lot for your family. You're not going to do a lot at your professional organization as well. So focus on your health, uh, both mental health as well as physical health, and that's something I'm very conscious about as well. I try to. It's a high stress job. Travel takes a lot out of you in terms of fatigue. So I try to stay healthy. Doesn't mean that you need to always be hitting the gym, but there are multiple ways of doing it. So those are some aspects of me, John. Probably you know it, maybe you don't, but those are some aspects. Hopefully, it's valuable for your listeners.
Well, Digant, thank you very much. This has been a thought provoking and insightful conversation. I learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners will find it equally as useful. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for making the time. Um, any final thoughts?
No, John, thank you for inviting me. And this is exciting, John, since I learned that you started this podcast a couple of months back, and I always wanted to be one of the guests. I'm glad you invited me, and thank you so much, John.
You're welcome. My pleasure. So, folks, as always, thank you so much for listening. And we rely on your comments and feedback that allows us to go ahead and create new content, choose new topics. So, if you like the content, if you find this podcast useful, please give us a thumbs up or likes. That really helps us with the Google and YouTube algorithm. Also, these podcasts are available on almost every platform. It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple. I believe it's also in Audible. So please go ahead and enjoy and hope to see you soon.